skepticism is high and trust is low. When the internet feeds you unfiltered, low-level information, you have to make sure that you're not just reading and consuming it. You have to make sure that the information is correct, accurate, and will help you make good decisions to run your business. The skills required to process information is critical thinking. I'm Ivana Taylor, the publisher of DIY Marketers and the host of Bizapalooza Chat. And today, we're going to help you develop your critical thinking skills. Now, our guest today is keynote speaker and critical thinking expert, Lucia Harper. Lucia, welcome. It is so great to have you.
It is so great to be here and to finally sort of meet you face to face after all of our Bizapalooza chats.
I know. And one of my favorite things to do is to have the guests, have our community become guests, because a lot of our members of our community are experts themselves.
For sure, for sure. And great minds think alike.
That's what I say. Now, as I was doing research for our chat, I was really hooked by this blog article that you wrote, The 3 Ways to Reduce Employee Stupidity in Public, where you say that stupidity, outside of doing something physically dangerous, of course, is really doing something outside of what's accepted by their public. So given that what we're chatting about today, I wanted to ask you to help us understand this relationship between critical thinking and sort of doing something stupid. What's an easy way to define critical thinking?
Well, I like to think of critical thinking as a system to reduce risk. It's the preferred method for efficiency and excellence in decision making. It's determining the difference between relevant and irrelevant, or the difference between useful and useless. You can use it quickly during conversations with friends and family. You can use it to determine your engagement online, what kind of attitude you cop while you're online, or in your business when you're building decision pathways.
And I think this is really the key issue that I want to talk about, because there's a lot of research that shows, and I just saw something the other day in my news stream, something about, how we're, humans are actually innately irrational. We think that we're rational, but we're irrational. And we're constantly defaulting to, I don't know, what our core beliefs are or something. And that I think critical thinking is becoming more and more important. What do you think about that? Why is it important?
Well, I think that as a species, we are definitely impulse driven. And, critical thinking kind of removes your baggage. I like to think of it like a little baggage porter. It kind of takes the luggage away while you make your decisions. It kind of takes emotion out of your decisions, because it's not about what you feel. It's about what you can confidently say to be factual or evidence-based. It's key online, because we're manipulated by thousands of times a day by inflammatory language and images and profoundly effective neuromarketing techniques that are based on our own behavior. And, emotion drives most of what we do in our personal lives. And in the workplace, we're often ego-driven or defensive of our positions that are based in our perceived expertise. So to form new intellectual habits, it's not just about pragmatism. It's often about our mental health in the workplace, our emotional intelligence. And critical thinking, it reduces our susceptibility to bullying, and it reduces our tolerance for bullying. And I think I want to add most joyously that critical thinking, it allows us to shake our social guilt and say no with conviction and personal comfort. And it's crucial for those people pleasers out there, of which I am one. Can I get it one?
Yeah, right. Amen. Amen. You said something so important. I hear psychologists say it all the time. You said you have to get out of what you feel. Colbert said something many, many years ago. He called it truthiness. This
Yeah.
idea that what we feel is actually true. And you focused on thinking, now, what are some exercises or habits or behaviors that we can do? Because I am fully convinced it's practice. I've changed a lot of my ways of thinking and being by simply practicing different thought patterns.
Right. Well, you can't get rid of a bad habit until you replace it with a good one. So it's first you have to identify the bad habit right off the bat. And I think the first one I want to start with is practicing healthy detachment. This is an emotional intelligence skill. It's also a Buddhist homage. You have to begin your day with understanding that other people's crap is not about you. And our ego wants to make us the star in everyone else's story, and we desire to be the motivation for the action of others when that's rarely the case. And we need validation from others, and when we rely on validation from others, we can predict that we will be slapped down time and time again throughout the day. So a quick way to do this practicing of healthy detachment is always be asking the question, is this really about me? Another one we can try is what we call in the highfalutin snootin language is practicing cognitive flexibility and being open to new ideas. And as I say online, unclench your mind. Listening to a new idea, it doesn't automatically mean you have to agree with it. It just, you're just gathering data. And third and really key is practicing patience in your decision making. We make very few life-threatening decisions in Western society. We're pretty well taken care of. And rarely are our decisions made in crisis management mode, unless your child has fallen off a slide or your foot's on fire. So we have to be mindful of the fact that everyone is really entitled to take the time that they need to make intelligent and well-considered decisions. And it comes down to giving yourself permission to execute your due diligence. So you just have to figure out what factors need considering and what will be effective. And finally, on that little question, I just want to say, we all have intellectual echo chambers. We hear echo chamber all the time when we're talking about social media, but we all have them in our big heads. And in those echo chambers, you're set in your ways. You only defer to what you already think you know. And we're quick to righteous indignation when we perceive a threat to that. So we can really evolve our thinking by stepping outside of that echo chamber.
Those are all such fantastic tips. Can you review them real quick one more time? The first one you said was separation.
I sure can. So first of all, we want to practice healthy detachment. Not everything's about you. So ask yourself, is it really about me? Whatever's going on in front of you. The second one is practicing cognitive flexibility. Unclench your mind, have some great ideas, listen to great ideas. We all have something to learn. And practice patience in decision making. Take the time you need to make considered decisions. Do your due diligence, check what's going to be effective. And finally, step outside your intellectual echo chamber. Be open to new ways of thinking, new concept. We just need to set new emotional and decision-making precedents so we can evolve our thinking. That would be my summation.
I love that summation. So now let's talk about a few examples, because I think the first one you mentioned about, is this really about me? I mean, how often does this happen? whether you're going after a new client or maybe you're up for a new job and you haven't heard anything in forever and you're like, oh my God, they hate me. Meanwhile, like everyone's on vacation, right?
So you want an example?
Yeah. So like that's one that popped up for me. What are some like real quick examples of each one?
Real quick examples of each one. Oh, that is such a good question. So let's just review the first one, practicing healthy detachment.
Is this really about me?
Right. So you're in the corner store and the girl at the counter or the boy at the counter is a cranky, surly person. It's not about you, honey. We don't know who pooped in their cornflakes before they got to work. Did they miss their bus? Was their boss a jerk? Their crap is not about you. So that's a really good example of, is this about me? It doesn't pay to look around every day and look for reasons to be offended. So the number 2 one I mentioned, the practicing cognitive flexibility. It's really easy for those of us that have been in our industries for a long time to be really set in our concepts. And if being in my 50s in 2018 has taught me nothing else, there's always a new way to think. We've seen the advent of social media. We've seen behavioral changes. So how society's been influenced by the advent of social media has been a place where being a communication strategist has really had to evolve. So let's listen to everyone in the room. Practice patience in decision making. I have a great example of that. You're at a networking event, someone comes up to you and says, I was doing a little bit of research and I really think we should get together on this little project and do some co-marketing to benefit both of our businesses. This is one I hear from my clients all the time. And of course, you go down the road and the relationship has decayed and someone didn't fulfill their commitments and that sort of thing. So going away, reviewing whether the strategic alignment is really in your favor is imperative. So take the time. Do you want to go to a movie night? Well, you're quick to say, oh, I'll call hubby or call my child and check if I'm free. And that is critical thinking. You're considering all the factors. And with regard to the intellectual echo chambers, I think it's a really good point to make that, see, this is where I think values and morals live. So, the way we dress has evolved. The way we perceive how people dress has evolved. There was a time when tattoos were for bikers and prison people, and now we call it body art. And we often wonder about the stories behind those tattoos and what enormous change was going on in that person's life when they made the decision to get that tattoo. So getting out of your intellectual echo chamber is also about your value system and allowing yourself to evolve in a healthy way.
Those are such great examples. I think that we have covered everything there is to cover. I can't wait to hear all your responses on the Twitter chat, and I invite all of our audience to head over and get into the search on Twitter, type in hashtag Bizapalooza Chat. Join us every Monday here at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. Lucia Harper, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, my darling.
Yeah.